Alright, so welcome back. We are here with my branded March 2024 deck, and I'm going to cover some important branded combos as well as go through a full on how a turn would go with a branded deck. So, anyway, let's get straight on into this. So, on the Yu-Gi-Oh field, your extra deck goes right here face down, and your main deck will go here. However, I will keep my extra deck face up purely for you guys, but my deck I'm going to keep face down. So, um, yeah, time to shuffle this. I'm going to show you a couple shuffle methods. I'm going to do two for one shuffle. So, first method is the pile shuffle method. So, pile shuffling, basically, you make a certain number of piles and you sort your cards into each pile face down. Yeah, this is just going to take me some time, so editor, cut this. Okay, so I sorted every single card into a pile. Now, it doesn't matter which order you pick them up in, just as long as you pick them up. Um, yeah, again, doesn't really matter which order you pick them up in, just as long as you pick them up without looking at them. Now, I'm going to do another quick shuffle here. Now, for all you people who like to do the bridge shuffle, don't do that with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. One, it's hard to do with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and two, it ruins them. So, yeah, don't do the pile shuffle. But instead, what you want to do is pick up a section and toss a little bit of cards into the front. This mixes them up pretty well after a good pile shuffle. So, just a few more shuffles here. That's it. Now for the final shuffle. You offer your opponent to cut your deck, which basically means you take the top half, you put it on the bottom. Now, it doesn't need to be exactly perfect, you just need to get it somewhere in the middle. Now your deck goes right here in the deck zone. And then let's see what our hand is. So first off, we're starting with Called by the Grave. Branded Fusion, all right, this is already a good hand. Branded Opening, all right, this hand is busted. Branded Retribution, again, busted. And Fall of Albas, yep, busted. So we have multiple ways of kickstarting this turn. However, I think I'm going to start this by activating the Branded Opening, which Branded Opening allows us to add any Despia monster from our deck to our hand, or we special summon it from our deck to the field in defense position. So we're going to look here for a copy of Aluber. Yep, Aluber. And we give this a quick shuffle. And then cut. Also, be sure you shuffle the deck after you search the deck. Now we're going to special summon Aluber into defense position. Next, we're going to activate Aluber's effect to add a branded spell or trap from our deck to our hand. Now, normally you're going to search for branded fusion if you don't have branded fusion, but because we have it, we're going to search for branded lost instead. Now, why did I decide to do branded lost and not any other branded spell or trap? It's because Called by the Grave could be used for something later. I mean, our branded fusion is already protected with Called by the Grave, but branded lost is permanent because it's a continuous spell card and not a quick play. So that's already good. So quick shuffling cut. Now we're going to activate the Branded Lost from our hand. Now nothing happens when Branded Lost is activated. However, we are going to do another thing, and that is activate the Branded Fusion from our hand. Now, what we're going to do for Branded Fusion is we're going to send Despian Tragedy and Fallen of Albaz to the graveyard off of Branded Fusion's effect in order to special summon from our extra deck a copy of Lubellion the Searing Dragon. Now, we're going to activate 3 effects in this order. The Despian Tragedy. So we're going to activate Lubellion first. Then we're going to chain block with Despian Tragedy. Now, chain blocking. Basically, what you do is if you have a card that you want to make sure goes through, you could block it with a card that you're not going to desire that much. However, so Despian Tragedy, use Graveyard Effect, is basically when it's sent to the graveyard, we could add any Despia monster from our deck to our hand that isn't Despian Tragedy. So we are going to look through the deck again for a copy of Aluber. That way we get another search next turn. So now we are officially set. Next up, we're also we would okay, hold on. Let me run through that again. So I'm gonna put a Luber at the top of the deck just for this. Okay, so we activate Despian Tragedy, then we chain Branded Lost. Branded Lost. So basically, I'm not doing this. This is just like for examples and whatnot. So like, hold on. Let me run through that again. Hold on. I'm just gonna fix something here because I forgot something. So after activating Despian Tragedy, we're gonna activate Branded Lost. Now, Branded Lost basically allows us to add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it from our deck to our hand. So Branded Lost's effect is going to kick in, and we are going to add a copy of Springgan's Kit to our hand. So there's chain 1 resolved. Now for chain 2, oh, wait a minute. No, I should explain how chains work. So basically, chains are basically like effects activated one after another. So since we activated Lubellion first, it would be chain 1. Then we activated Despian Tragedy. That would be chain 2. Then we activated Branded Lost, which would be chain 3. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what order do you activate cards in a chain? Well, as the chain builds, you go in reverse order from when they were activated. So you start with Lubellion, you end with Lubellion. That is basically how chains work. Start a chain with Lubellion, you end it with Lubellion. So Branded Lost's effect is going to kick in. We get Kit. Tragedy's effect is going to kick in. And we're going to get an Aluber off of it. And now Lubellion's effect is going to kick in. So Lubellion's effect, basically we discard a card in order to fusion summon. So we're gonna discard Branded Retribution because we could use it to recover the Branded Fusion during our opponent's turn. So discard Branded Retribution. And now we're going to fuse Lubellion by sending it back to the extra deck. And then we're going to reshuffle Fallen of Albaz back into the deck. Basically, what Lubellion does is Lubellion recovers fusion materials to fusion summon. So How I shuffle cards into the deck is just placing there somewhere random and then shuffling the deck. That's how I shuffle a card back into my deck. Now, because Libellion cannot be shuffled back into the deck, it goes back into the extra deck anywhere you put it, which I'm just going to put it on top. Now we're going to fusion summon our Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is our boss monster for this. So, now Branded Lost's effect does not kick in again because we already used its effect once. Now, what do we do now? So, because we technically didn't normal summon yet, we technically did not normal summon on our first turn. We special summoned a Luber and then committed a bunch of fusion summons. But to start off, we're going to normal summon Springgan's Kit. This will add a branded Speller Trap from our deck to our hand for absolutely no cost except when we special summon it. So the card that we are going to add is going... So the card we're going to add is going to be... Actually, I didn't think this through. I'm trying to think. Which card should we add? You know what? I think we'll just add Branded Fusion. That way we have it in case our Branded Retribution does not go through on the next turn. So, yeah, basically, always prepare for your next turn whenever you can. Always prepare for your opponent's turn because you don't know what's going to happen. So, I'm going to have a Branded Fusion. That way, if Branded Retribution doesn't go through, we'll still have a Branded Fusion. Now, we would commence our battle phase and... Well, we went first, so we wouldn't have a battle phase this turn. We go to our main phase 2. We aren't going to do anything in our main phase 2 because we have nothing to do in our main phase 2. So, yeah, that is the usual way you want to start with this deck. So, yeah, you basically want to quickly get Mirror Jade onto the field using Aluber. And you want to be sure that you end off with a Branded Fusion in your hand or a way to recover Branded Fusion or a Luber or something. You just want something that'll help with the next turn, like on field or in the graveyard. Anyway, that's basically it for the test hand for turn 1. Anyway, yeah, you get the feel for how this deck works now. It's supposed to turbo out fusion monsters through Branded Fusion. Yeah. So, now let's get into the second portion where I take cards from the deck and explain certain interactions that you can do within the deck. So, I'm just going to take all these cards back and put them into the deck at any random order. Now, it doesn't matter what order you put the cards back into the deck because you're going to shuffle it again anyway. But I'm just going to show you a couple interactions that would be good in this deck. So now basically you're probably wondering, well, my hand doesn't have Branded Fusion. How can I get to Branded Fusion on the first turn? Actually, that is very simple. You have multiple ways of getting into Branded Fusion in this deck. Either you already have a Branded Fusion along with a Branded Retribution in your graveyard to recover it. Might I also add that you can recover Branded Fusion with Despian Tragedy as well, because Despian Tragedy allows you to recover any branded Speller Trap from the graveyard. Next up, another way you could search for Branded Fusion is through the 3 copies of Aluber that you have. And you're probably wondering, well, I don't have this graveyard set up yet. and I don't have a Luber in the hand, there is actually a way to search a Luber, which if you have been paying attention to the test hands, you know that you can search for a Luber via a spell card called Branded Opening. And you could also search for Branded Fusion using the 2 copies of Springgan's kit that are in this deck. So you technically have 1, 2, 3, 4 ways to get to Branded Fusion. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 ways to search Branded Fusion. And you have ways of recovering it from the graveyard as well. Now you're probably wondering, well, I don't have any of those cards. Is there any way I could draw into them faster? Actually, yes. Because this deck runs 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Now, let me show you how Pot of Prosperity works. So basically, clear the field for a minute. So imagine, like, your hand consists of only, like, cards that aren't going to do you any good, yet you have Pot of Prosperity in the hand. So you would activate the Pot of Prosperity. Basically, you'd activate the Pot of Prosperity, and now you banish 3 to 6. You banish 3 or 6 cards of your choice face down. So what we're going to banish is 1 Mirror Jade, 1 Lubellion, 2 Albions, and 1 Sprind and Breakground. Now, you wouldn't tell your opponent what you're banishing because you just banish them face down. And then what you do next is you get to look at the top 6 cards of the deck if you banished 6, 3 if you only banished 3. And then, like, let's just say, like, super polymerization. Not Branded Fusion, but it works. So you'd take that. And then the rest go to the bottom of the deck in any order. However, because you could still search after using Pot of Prosperity, it's going to get shuffled again later, so it really does not matter which order you put them in, because they're going to get reshuffled anyway. Anyway, those are ways to quickly get to Branded Fusion if you don't have it in your hand. Now you're probably wondering, well, what if I have none of these cards? How can I still Fusion Summon turn 1? Well, for turn 1, you have to get a little bit lucky. Because 1, your opponent must have a field that allows normal summoning, and they must have a monster that can be fused off. Because a majority of your fusion monsters require something that your opponent most likely has done. Like our boss monster, Mirror Jade, requires Fallen of Albaz, and any extra deck monster that is not a pendulum monster, which are very easy conditions to meet. Why? Because almost every deck has some form of an extra deck. Literally, it's like if you don't have an extra deck, you're basically screwed. That is basically how the game is viewed. You don't have an extra deck, you might as well not play. So, yeah, those are some like ways to quickly search Branded Fusion. Now, I didn't cover every single card in the game. I know in this, I'm not covering every single card in the game. I'm also not covering all the interactions this deck can make, as I want you all to try it for yourselves and find those interactions yourself. Yes. Now, the only fusion monsters that I actually used for this test hand were Mirror Jade and Lubellion. That is it. Just Mirror Jade and Lubellion. Yeah, the others I didn't use as much. Why? Because they're only useful in certain situations. Like, not only that, it's really hard for me to fusion summon this, as the only way I can fusion summon it is with Branded in White or Super Polymerization. Because Branded Fusion only allows me to fusion summon a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material. Now, that's not a bad thing, it just means that it's harder to get out and is really only useful in certain situations. Now, I'm going to do another test hand just to show you. Just to show you how consistent this deck is. So we're going to give it a quick shuffle here. Now, wait a minute. I got to read Lubellion's effect. Does it require... So, Lubellion's effect... This card's used when you discard... Oh! So you can actually use Lubellion to summon Masquerade. Alright, I was wrong. So, yeah, Masquerade requires a Despian monster and a lighter dark monster. So because we're going to have Aluber or Tragedy on field or graveyard, we can use those monsters and Fallen of Albaz to summon it. And then we get something that forces our opponent to pay life points to activate card effects. I didn't think of that. Okay. So I'm going to set up a new game plan. Focus on the Despian engine. That's what I'm going to mainly focus on. And when I summon Lubellion, I'm not going to go for Mirror Jade. I'm going to go for Masquerade. And I could summon Mirror Jade a later turn. Okay, so our first hand gives us Ash Blossom. Great. Branded Lost. Great. Branded Retribution. Amazing. Pot of Prosperity. All right, nice. And Crossout Designator. All right, this is perfect. Now, this doesn't have Branded Fusion. Yeah, we can do some stuff. So we're going to activate Branded Lost automatically. That way we have it already set up. Now, we're going to activate Pot of Prosperity. And we're going to banish one... So we're going to banish one Lubellion, one Mirror Jade. Now, you don't tell your opponent what you're banishing. You keep it to yourself. I'm just telling you exactly what I'm banishing. Now you know what I would and would not have. So I just banished 2 Lubellions there. Right, that's 4. Now I need 2 more. You know what? 1 Sprint and 1 Titaniclad. Alright then. So now Pot of Prosperity's effect officially activates. Now, I'm going to show you another thing this deck can do. Now, usually after you activate this, an Ash Blossom would kick in, which is this card. So what you could do, now Ash Blossom is this thing's weakness. And you're probably thinking, like, what's actually going to happen is after my opponent would activate Ash Blossom, chain that, and then banish So, chain Crossout, banish the second Ash. Now, Ash Blossom's effects are negated for the rest of the turn. That goes to the grave. Shuffle the deck again, because I searched it. Oh god. Now, Prosperity's effect kicks in, and we get to excavate the top 6 of our deck. Okay. All right. Okay. So, we got a bunch of good cards from this. I'm going to add Branded Opening. Now you're probably wondering, why not just add a Luber and make my life easier? Well, by using Branded Opening, we can thin the deck a little bit. So yeah, we thin the deck a little more if we use Opening. And thinning the deck is usually good. So now we would activate our Branded Opening. And we get to add a Luber from our deck to our hand, or special summon it in defense, which I'm going to do now. Also, that goes to the grave. Actually, this would go to the grave first. Then that would go into the grave. Now, Aluber's effect kicks in. So I'm going to shuffle this again because I forgot to shuffle for Branded Opening. And now, we're going to add the Branded Fusion. And now, Branded Fusion. Now we're going to send Tragedy and Fallen of Albaz. And then we're going to summon one of our Lubellians on it. Yep, summoning Lubellian again. Now, here's how this is going to be different. So I'm going to do the same chain again, Lubellian, Tragedy, and Lost. So Lost's effect kicks in, and we add a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz in its effect, or is Fallen of Albaz, which that is going to be our it's going to be our Springans hit again. Though we get a search, like another search for this turn. Tragedy's effect kicks in, so we add a Luber. Oh, nope. So put that back in. And now Lubellian's effect activates. So we're going to return Despian Tragedy and Fallen of Albaz. We're going to shuffle these back. And then we're going to summon Masquerade. Now, with this card on the field, our opponent must pay 600 life points when they activate card effects, which is very good. And if our opponent controls a Ritual Fusion Synchro or sees a Link monster, while this card's on our graveyard, we can special summon this card, but we banish it when it leaves the field. So if this is sent to the graveyard, we can special summon it if they control an extra deck or Ritual monster, just to torment them more. Now, to continue the turn, normal summon Kit. Hold on. Continue the turn, normal summon Kit. And then we add Branded Fusion to our hand. That way we could just fuse it, just keep fusing on and on again. That way we could just keep fusing on our next turn. So, yeah, that's another kind of play you can make for this deck. Now you're probably noticing some consistent strategy here. We normally want to get Lubellion on the field as fast as humanly possible. That way we could summon out another extra deck monster of our choice. And set up for the next turn. That is basically the key idea with this branded strategy. Now, this deck is centered around going second. However, it does do good going first, as I have just proven right here. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed those two little test stands there. I'm going to do this for Exosister eventually when I get the upgrades for Exosister that I need. Because let's just say my Exosister deck is very mediocre and not on the competitive level that it should be. As I am missing quite a few cards. In fact, this one guy on YouTube, who I'm not going to name because I don't want to call them out, questioned why I didn't have specific cards needed to make Exosister good. And it's because I just don't have the funds for it. However, I'm not going to call him out. And I'm not going to hate him for it. Why? Because I'm not that guy. I'm not going to hate someone just because I'm limited. And it's practically my fault that I'm limited. Well, it's not my fault. In fact, it's no one's fault that I'm limited. It's just I have I just have less experience than most modern Yu-Gi-Oh players. Why? Because I came into the game during the Link era, which is like very late into the game. It was like late. Well, I came into the game like around late Pendulum, early Link, or mid Link. I'm not too sure when I came in, but I do know it was way late. However, I do have my own experiences, and let's just say that I do enjoy the game. I love the game, even though it's sort of toxic, but still, it's not too toxic when you get used to it. Yeah, it's only Master Duel that's toxic, and I'm just not gonna say any more. Alright then. Well, anyway, so I hope you enjoyed these test hands along with explaining certain combos and interactions within the deck that are important to know. I hope you enjoy, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys. Like, subscribe, enjoy the video, and I will see you all soon.